Welcome to Inland Empire Alive, bringing you issues, events, and perspectives from throughout San Bernardino and Riverside counties. I'm David Brady, and on today's show, Maestro Ransom Wilson joins me remotely to talk about his long career and his recent tenure as music director and conductor of the Redland Symphony. That's today on Inland Empire Alive. Well, I'm honored to welcome my next guest, enjoying his final season as the music director and conductor of the Redland Symphony, Maestro Ransom Wilson. Maestro, welcome to the program.
My pleasure.
So out of those 9 years, what have been some of the highlights?
Well, every year has been a highlight. Just getting to Redlands was a highlight for me because it's such a lovely place. And the people are so nice and supportive of the orchestra. I would say even my sort of audition concert was we had a great time because it was all dance music. So it was all kind of upbeat and very energetic. And we've done a lot of important premieres, world premieres, commissions. We've had some amazing soloists. They're colleagues of mine in New York, and they're kind enough to allow us to get them at our prices. And it's just been a great experience overall. The orchestra is very good and gotten much better in the time that I've been there, I'm happy to say. Our audiences have grown. It's all just been all positive. I mean, even, believe it or not, even the COVID year was good because it allowed the orchestra to come together and do some online things that they never would have thought of before, and that in itself generated a certain amount of camaraderie because we all live in different places. It was nice to have something we could all do together.
Well, I wanted to ask about that. What surprised you about those 9 years? Certainly the pandemic was not something that you anticipated, that you had to quickly adapt to.
No, yeah, well, we weren't sure. None of us were sure if we were ever going to see anybody again. I mean, that's how bad it was at first. And I'm sure you remember, the rolling morgues in New York City. I mean, who knew what was going to happen? As it turned out, it was only a year, thank God. And, as I say, during that year, we didn't lose any ground, which is amazing. We just, the board pulled together, the union helped us out even, and we managed to have a season, even though nobody could be there. I think one of the most surprising things about this orchestra, first of all, it's in a town that's too small to have a professional orchestra, and yet it has one, and it's a really good one. And people love it. The musicians love it so much they're willing to travel from LA, which, on a Friday is hell, So, I mean, they're willing to drive 4 hours to a rehearsal. That's extraordinary. It's a very special place, very special bunch of people.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Over the course of your, half century now, you've been affiliated with some very premier world-class institutions. How important is it to support, as you say, these smaller regional institutions like Redlands that don't have the donor base, that don't have the financial support as the larger institutions?
Well, I think every town needs to think of its museum, its sports team, its orchestra as something very precious to them, and that reflects their community, their particular kind of community. And that's particularly true in Redlands, I would say, because it's a very supportive place in terms of charities. I mean, I was told this when I first got there, and it turned out to really be true, that every organization supported all the other organizations. That's really unusual. So everybody's not, they don't, you don't feel like everybody's fighting for the same pot of money, you know. Everybody's willing to help each other, and they accommodate each other in dates, in fundraising. They share resources. Um, and that's very unusual. I mean, you certainly don't find that in a big city.
When I looked over your career and some of the things you've done and the places you've been, it struck me how much travel there has been. Did you really understand when you were choosing the life of a musician what an itinerant life it would be? How much living out of a suitcase would be required?
Well, I certainly knew that there was going to be some. It is a big part of being a musician, and it's one of the reasons why, if somebody asks me, you know, should I be a musician, or should I think about doing something else? And the answer is, you should only be a musician if you just can't stand being anything else, because it's a hard life. It's definitely a hard life. I mean, nobody. Uh, we feel like the general public doesn't understand us or appreciate us enough, and so we're constantly fighting this uphill battle. And as you say, we're on the road all the time. Um, I have a really healthy Advantage Mile account, I can tell you that. Uh, and uh, it is the hardest thing about it, really. And you know, the way travel has become lately, it's the hardest thing about it. So yeah, yes, there's been a lot of travel. I'm up to 4 million miles on American.
Wow.
I mean, I don't, they're not all in my account right now, but that's how many I've over the years. That's how many I've flown.
How
It's
were
quite a
you
few.
drawn to music originally? Did you grow up surrounded by music? What was the initial inspiration for you?
Now, I was kind of the black sheep in that regard because no one else in my family is a musician. I do have a brother, he's 2 years younger than me, who's a famous painter, and his name is Evan Wilson. And 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 then there are four more siblings after that, but none of them exhibited any kind of artistic talent. Uh, my parents weren't particularly artistic. My mother did some drawing and stuff, but nobody was musical. Um, my maternal grandfather was a radio personality in the 30s in Memphis, and he played a lot of instruments by ear, and he had a good ear for mimicry. But that's it. So I don't know exactly why. The first time I heard a symphony orchestra, I went nuts. I mean, I didn't know there was anything like this. I'd heard a lot of bands, you know. I mean, we're in Alabama, it's football territory, you know. And so the school that I'm now conductor for, the University of Alabama, has a world famous marching band, the so-called Million Dollar Band. And that pervades everything at this school. I mean, they're really good, so I'm not complaining about it, but that's how we're perceived. We're a marching band school. So when I was growing up, I loved marching band. I really did. I was not particularly good at it, I have to say that. When I finally did, you have to get 8 steps to 5 yards so precisely that you can, you know, draw letters and things. I was not particularly good at it. I was great at playing the flute, but I couldn't get those 8 steps in.
Well, if you'll forgive me, there's a question I have to ask. What does a master flute virtuoso listen to as his guilty pleasures? Like, what do you want to listen to when you're sort of relaxing at home? What's on your playlist?
You know what it is? It's all big band from the 40s. So I listened to Benny Goodman and Tommy Dorsey and Glenn Miller and all of those people. Uh, I think that was one of the high points of American pop music. It's so sophisticated and so complex, and you know, right after that was a kind of a dumbing down is the wrong word, but complete simplification. When you get to 50s rock and roll, it's just, you know, just a couple of chords.
Hey, three
But you
chords and
listen
the
back
truth,
to,
they say.
but you know, listen to Duke Ellington. It's so sophisticated and complex and really intellectually derived. It's extraordinary. And so I have Sirius XM in my car, and I have the 40s channel ready to go almost any moment. When I hear something awful on the news, immediately go over to the 40s channel
Well,
and
before I
feel
let you
better.
go, I want to make sure we tell folks about your final evening with the Redland Symphony. Talk to me about the Cinematic Soundscapes program that's happening on Saturday, May 10th. What can people expect?
Well, we're doing a kind of a panorama from the early days of Hollywood. Some Eric Korngold, who's just amazing. Um, Richard Strauss thought he was the most talented musician he had ever met in his life. Then he came to Hollywood and wrote for the movies. And then we're going all the way through to the modern day with John Williams and Danny Elfman and you name it. So it's a big orchestra, lots of sound. Of course, we have the best acoustics in the whole area, so it's gonna blow the roof off.
And what is next for you?
Well, I've taken this job in Alabama, and it's a big job in that I'm building an orchestral program really from scratch. And that's exciting because I get to make it the way I want it. But it's a lot of hard work and a lot of changing people's habits and that kind of thing. Um, and who knows? I mean, if another orchestra comes along, professional orchestra that seems right, uh, yeah, I might very well want to do it. But I'm no spring chicken, and the traveling is getting harder and harder. So I don't know, not sure. Right now, I'm just enjoying life.
Well, tickets are available now. You can go to redlandsymphony.com. Again, the final evening with Maestro Ransom Wilson, Cinematic Soundscape, Saturday, May 10th, 7:30 p.m. Maestro, thank you so much for being on the program. It's been a wonderful discussion.
My pleasure entirely. Thank you.
Visit iealive.com.